Welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. Here we'll talk to the leaders in technology, culture, business, and the arts. We'll cover politics, advocacy, motherhood, writing, mental health, and mostly we'll focus on hope. Join Kim B. Davis, author, playwright, radio personality, event consultant, professional speaker on the Kim B. Davis Show.
Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening we have a dynamic panel of inspirational women who are going to talk to us about molestation and sexual abuse. And so let me do my due diligence by introducing them one by one, and hopefully I can get all of their details correct. So for our first panel expert, we have Ms. Toni McBride. She is a ordained minister. She is co-author, and she is also a speaker. And she's going to tell us and share with us her story and why she has written this. The name of the book is called Hush, and we're going to share some dynamic stories to help people get healed. Our next author or next expert is Dominique Johnson. She is an author, minister, business owner, and she is also going to share some dynamic stories with us. Then we have Angel Parks. She is also a co-author. She is an ordained intercessor and a business owner and mom of 3. Last but certainly not least, we have Michele D. Clark. She is a licensed therapist. She's a business owner. She's also a co-author, and she is a living inspired coach. Guys, this is going to be a dynamic panel. Good evening and welcome to you, ladies. How are you?
Hi.
Great. Super fantastic and terrific on Tuesdays.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so let's start off. So the name of the book is called Hush. Toni, will you tell me why you decided to participate in this venture with the fantastic Tanisha Johnson, who unfortunately could not be with us tonight, but is with us here?
So, again, my name is Tanya Plater McBride, but I like to go by Toni. And the reasoning for me participating in this was because I was asking and helping other young women, helping other young men, other adults to do something that I wasn't willing to do. And that was to learn how to be forgiven, to learn how to process healing properly. And I was helping them, and they were going through and getting delivered and getting freed and moving past their hurts and really, doing a lot of good things with their lives. And I was still masking. I was still hiding behind a mask because when you're a strong person, you never want to be, I use the analogy like in the jungle, you never want to be the wounded. You never want to be seen as the wounded, because I was always the go-to girl. Until one day I just really had an aha moment. And this opportunity came, and I said, what better way to do this would be to be totally free and write about it. So that's why I took the opportunity to do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Toni. Dominique, can you share with us why you decided to be a part of this project called Hush?
So I decided to be a part of this project after writing my very own book. It's called Rising Out the Pit of Rejection. So that was my first book that I just published this year as well. And so during that time, I had begun to go through a lot of deliverance and healing myself for my own molestation and just all of the different things I experienced as a child, and rejection and abandonment and all of those things. And so when it was time for me to have this opportunity, it was brought to me, that it was a great opportunity. I said, okay, well, Lord, what do you want me to do? And I prayed about it, and he told me it was time for me to go ahead and tell my story again with other women so that other people could be healed. A lot of the things that I experienced was generational, family secrets. And so I decided that I didn't want I have a daughter. I don't want my daughter to have to experience those things because we continue to keep things hidden. So I decided to go ahead and put my story out there and allow God to get the glory for it.
Amen. Amen. Thank you for sharing that. Angel, can you tell us why you decided to be a part of the Hush Fund?
Actually, it's kind of the same. It was a blessing for me. A lot of things happened for me during COVID, and I really want to say COVID was my awakening. I was able to really do a self-check. I was able to purge, and at the time, I finally had been free enough to tell my father, you know, what had happened to me growing up. And after I told him that, I felt so much better. But then I got presented with this opportunity, and likewise, Dominique, I started praying on it. And what was funny is the individual who brought it to me told me about the young lady, Tanisha. We're missing you, Tanisha. And funny enough, when I opened up the link and saw that name, I said, hey, I used to go to church with her. So that was confirmation. It was like, you know what? This is it right here. This is what needs to be done. And I just moved forward doing it.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Now we have Michele D. Clark, our Living Inspired coach. Tell us, Michele, why you decided to be a part of the book Hush.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much, Kimberly, for having us this evening. And additionally, I just really want to thank Tanisha, our visionary author, who cannot make it here tonight. Thank you so much, Tanisha, for having this vision. And thank you so much to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for giving her the vision and then giving us all the provision to see it through. So thank you so much for all of that. And, I was introduced to Tanisha actually about in 2017, I believe it was. And I didn't get a chance to move forward on a project working with her. And so when I saw that she was doing the anthology and it was the topic that it was on, it was something that was near and dear to me because mine is a little bit different. Mine is more sexual assault, but because of the fact that it was repetitive in nature over and over again, that's where it became more of the abuse. And so I felt that it was very, very important to have that side of the coin also be told. So that way we can make sure that our young, we'll say men and women, because it's not just, women are not the only ones being abused or assaulted, men are too. And so I want to make sure we got that out there. And my chapter is called Behind Closed Doors. And so I really wanted to air out what was going on behind closed doors so we can raise awareness and start the healing process.
Wonderful. Okay, so you guys talked a lot. You talked about masking. You talked about how COVID was a opportunity for you to deal with some things. Michele, you talked about how yours wasn't necessarily molestation in the traditional definition of the word. It was assault. However, because of, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, the number of times that you said it was repetitive. I read a statistic. It said 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 7 boys will be sexually assaulted before the age or by the age of 18. This is according to the Department of Justice. I watch a lot of Law and Order, and I don't know about you guys if you've ever seen Law and Order Special Victims. They deal with a lot of abuse, rape, assault, molestation with children. It seems like there are so many shows, documentaries, studies, reports, different things that talk and say that this is an issue. Yet, as Michele said, and I'm going to start with you, Michele, you talked about it's behind closed doors. Toni, you talked about the shame of no one wanting to talk about it. Dominique, you talked about let me talk to God and see what he wants me to do with this. And Angel, you repeated that. And I believe that that's intentional because I do believe that God brought all of you together to share this story so that we can have some healing. But what I'd like to do is I want to go back and start with Michele. Michele, will you give us a little bit of your story and then talk to us about what it was like being able to share it and hopefully help someone get some healing?
Absolutely. As an inspirational speaker, I wanted to make sure that our voices were heard. And as I was speaking on one of the stage at one of the #1 speaking stages with Sean Fair and the Leadership Experience Tour, I spoke about how one bad decision that I made took me down a rabbit hole that changed the whole trajectory of my life. And I want to put a pause on that because I don't want anybody to leave here tonight thinking that because I made that bad decision that I deserve to be raped or that it was my fault. No, 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 no. Let's not be mistaken. I don't care if I showed up at his doorstep butt naked with a hot and ready sign on. If I said no, no means no. And so I was 14 years old. He was 19 years old. He was a friend of a friend. And I went over to his house. I knew I had no, listen, y'all, I knew I had no business being over there in the first place. I knew it was a bad decision. So for you all out there, if you know it's a bad decision, do not follow through. Stop. It could literally save your life. But this changed my life because I didn't stop. And I went in, hung out with him. He invited me to his bedroom. And as naive as I was, I went to his bedroom. And at that point, he took my virginity. He took out his penis and he put it in my vagina. And I'm saying it like that because it's so important for us to make sure that we're using proper terms when we're teaching our children. Because you don't want to say, oh, this is your pocketbook, or oh, this is your, because then, we just want to make sure so that way if something does happen, and we don't want to say, oh, well, you know what? He touched my pocketbook. And then you say, oh, well, honey, you shouldn't have brought your pocketbook. And the child looking like, what? So we want to make sure we're giving people proper terms. And so he took out his penis and he put it in my vagina. And I remember just blacking out, if you will. I froze. You know how we have fight, flight, freeze? I froze. And the only thing I remember after that was hearing the jingle of his belt buckle. And so my whole life changed after that, Kimberly. After that, I just spiraled out of control. I started to engage in promiscuous behaviors. And it's almost like I was looking for something that wasn't there. I even went back to the abuser. I even went back to him, the one who victimized me. And I had sex with him over and over again. And I never enjoyed it, Kim. So it wasn't for the enjoyment. It wasn't for the pleasure. I didn't even know what having an orgasm meant because that was my first time having sex was rape. And so that day, not only, Kim, did he steal my virginity, but he stole my identity. I always thought that I was going to be able to wear that white dress down the aisleway because that's what my parents, I had old school value parents, and that's what they taught me. And so once that happened, I didn't know who I was anymore. And I began to behave like I didn't know who I was or whose I was. And it was very traumatizing. It was very difficult for me to overcome that.
Thank you for sharing that, Michele. That is an important point. And I want you to repeat again. No means what?
No means no. N-O, not maybe, not now, not possibly. It means no. Stop.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that story. Angel, will you share your story and what it has meant for healing?
I was molested at an early age, probably like about 4 or 5, by a couple of family members. And it as well changed a lot with me. The sexual abuse, that taken from me at such an early age, it kind of catapulted me into my adult life, being more susceptible to having more abuse in my life, accepting more abuse, be it in a verbal abusive relationship, seeing it, and it changed a lot for me. It truly changed a lot for me.
Thank you for sharing that. Dominique, will you share that?
Sure. So my abuser was actually a family member, and it was a cousin. And my mom worked a lot at the time, so she would take me to my aunt's house so that I could be able to go to school with my cousin because it was, convenient for her. So a lot of my abuse took place in the basement. He made me do a lot of things to him. He would make me watch porn, and he would tell me the things that he was wanting to do to me eventually. So where, I guess it was kind of like his warm up for me to know that this is what was going to happen. I was only like 8 or 9 years old when this is happening. So, of course, those experiences traumatically changed my life. I already dealt with a lot of rejection because my biological father wasn't in my life. And although I had my stepdad, he loved me and he was great, you know, there was just things about me that was different, and he wasn't able to like speak to my identity and tell me different things about me and confirm those things for me. And so because I dealt with abuse, sexual abuse, and then I felt like I had this hole in me. I experienced a lot of abuse as a young adult. I got into a relationship with my ex-husband now, but it was all based upon our pain points, you know, and both of our rejection. And so I dealt with a lot of abuse, and you know, when I look back at it now, I know where it came from and where it stemmed from. So I would just, you know, I definitely would like for people to learn and start to come to a place of where we don't hide. I didn't know when I was younger that a lot of women in my family had the same thing happen to them. Family members will rape them and molest them, women and men. And so had I known and had my family talked about it, I would have been more aware of what was happening. But of course, my abuser threatened my life, and I'm 8 or 9 years old. I don't know that he's not going to do what he says, you know. So I really have a passion for people to understand how to not keep secrets, because those secrets, you know, are detrimental to your family, like to your generations, your children, your children's children. And so, you know, we just need to like really come to a place where we can discuss like, hey, I was touched. Hey, I was made to perform oral sex. You know, and I tell my story in the book, and they can read it about how in depthly that was. But we should be able to have these conversations and not be ashamed to have them, or feel like we're being ostracized because we're having them, or feel like we're, you know, or that we become the black sheep of the family because we decide to talk about it, you know. So that's just a little bit of my story. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm putting a pin in your story and Angel's stories, because I have a question for you, but I want to get to Toni and let her share, because I have a feeling there's a theme going on, which I hear it in terms of secrecy in families. Toni, could you go ahead and share your story?
Yeah, so like Dominique, my story was with my parents. My parents were very transient. They were in and out of my life. I lived with my grandmother and my uncle who raised me. And oftentimes I would hear my mother about this particular person. My mom and dad, you know, were adamant about me not being around this person. The gentleman happened to be a neighborhood guy who lived in the neighborhood, who to me was very nice. He never treated me bad. He never talked bad. He was always jovial. And everybody in the neighborhood, you know, spoke to him. So I just thought that my parents were just being them when they gave their strong demands of, I don't want you around this person. Or when my dad gave him the verbal threat that if I ever see you around my daughter, I'm going to kill you. And my dad meant every word that he said. This particular man was a very older gentleman. I happened to be about 11 years old. And when your parents tell you stuff, like when we're talking, your parents tell you, I don't want you around this person, or don't sit on this person's lap, or this or that. They never tell you the full magnitude of what's going on. So as a kid being abandoned, you know what I mean, by your parents, you just think that they're just saying whatever because that's just how they are. They aren't here taking care of me. So I really don't have to listen to this. They don't know. They're not here all the time. This person, eventually I ended up at his apartment. Unbeknownst to me, I just was going with my friends who told me that that was their uncle. When I get to the apartment, who opens the door? It's him. We go in, everything's fine. My friends, we, you know, chit chat, eat, laugh. They get money for the movies, and we're off. You know, we're off to our regular little Saturday, what we do. The next go around, they ask me to meet them there. I meet them there. They never show up. He's there, he walks up, he sees me sitting outside waiting, invites me up, and I'm thinking nothing's gonna happen. I'm fine. Nothing happened before. He's a good guy. Lo and behold, I decided I've been there too long. I need to go. Let me make a plan to go to the bathroom and come out and say something so I can walk out the door. And when I come out the bathroom, he's fully unclothed and very kindly speaking to me. At 11 years old, you're sitting here and this man is undressed in front of you. You don't know what to expect. He's nice, but if you say that this is not what I want to do, what may happen? And who's going to know where you are? So I went along with it, and going along with this lasted for 2 years. It lasted for 2 years. Everything that he said he would do, he was kind, he was gentle, and that's where a lot of young ladies, that's the purpose of me writing this, because a lot of young ladies get lulled into this sense of when you are abandoned and you find the root of your abandonment, anything that resembles love is love to you. And when you're young, you don't understand that. And as you get older, you carry that false burden of being there and enjoying what was going on. But at the time, what was going on was a pedophile was taking advantage and changing, how did you say, Michele, my whole trajectory of my life. So that's my story.
Powerful. Okay, so Angel, I want to go back to you because you said, I believe you said you were about 4 or 5.
Yes.
Did you suffer with abandonment issues? Was this a cousin? If you're not comfortable saying, it's okay.
It was a cousin. At the time, I don't think I was suffering from abandonment issues. I was suffering from do as you were told by whomever you're told and being watched by. And if you don't, there's going to be repercussions for it. That was always what my parents said. And I always go back to saying they were young. And I don't think they knew the impact of saying that. It gave that person the permission, to kind of prey upon me, especially when you're saying it in front of them, so be it by all means, if you're telling me to do what they say, of course, I don't want to get reprimanded. So I'm going to do as I'm told to do to make sure that, I don't follow any repercussions after that. And that was the case. It wasn't until later on in my teenage years and my adolescent years, I began to dislike myself, not having any self-love, self-worth, still kind of struggle with that at times. And I didn't feel that I deserved anything because of what had happened. So it did a complete spiral for me, with looking at myself, body imaging. It was a substantial. It was substantial.
And I understand it. And thank you for sharing those details. At any point, did you think that there was anyone that you could tell, try and tell? Or was it because your mom and dad said, this is the person who's watching, you have to do what they say, and you just dealt with it the best way that you could?
You kind of broke up. I apologize. Say it again.
Okay. I was asking, at any point, did you ever tell? Did you ever feel comfortable that you could share some of it with anyone? Or did you fall into, as you said, my parents said, this person is watching me, do as they tell me to do because I don't want to get reprimanded?
I never felt comfortable speaking about it. The first relative who did it, the cousin, I never, of course, I never said anything. I also had an uncle who molested me. I can never get past the light going off. All I know is he used to always tell me he wanted me to be his girlfriend. And I remember being in the room. I remember the lights going out. I don't remember anything after that. But in terms of speaking to anyone about it, I kept it in. I kept it in my whole childhood. I think number one, out of embarrassment, once I began to understand what sex was. Again, my parents were young, so I remember when I had my first cycle, I was 9 years old. My mother sent me to the store with my dad. And at that time, that's the 80s, they were promoting tampons. I came back with tampons because that's what they were promoting on the television. And she fussed at me and said, "This is what you use when you're having sex. Are you having sex?" I'm 9. What is sex? All I know is this is what they're showing on television. So I never really felt comfortable, and I never really understood, but I just kept it silent. And it wasn't until I saw the guy who molested me, well, my cousin. It wasn't until I was grown with children that I saw him at a family event. And in that moment, I felt like that 4 or 5-year-old again. And it was because I wanted to get away, but I didn't know how. And I had girls, and I didn't want him to do what he had did to me, to my girls. So when I finally left that day, I called and I told my mother. That was the first time, I believe I was in my mid-30s.
Wow.
And I didn't speak about it again until, like I said, until COVID. I mean, of course, I told my children, and that was always the conversation that we had. Let not anyone touch your penis, your vagina. And I named it because, growing up, my vagina was called my Spanish. What's a Spanish? Let's call it what it is. But, I've always had that conversation with my girls and with my son. If anyone bothers you, you need to let me know. And what I also did, if they didn't feel comfortable, we had what was called a mommy note. And what they would do was slide a note up under the door of my room and let me know that there was a note that I needed to read. And it would be, from one of their handwritings, but it wouldn't be necessarily from that person. And we would have an open dialogue about it. But yeah, it wasn't until my mid-30s that I finally said something. And then COVID, I don't know what came over me. It was just at that moment, just communicating with my father, because he and I never really had a great relationship, and we were starting to establish one. I blurted it all out, and it was such a relief. It was a relief. And afterwards, things just started, moving forward for me in a better light.
So may I ask you, what was your mother's reaction and what was your father's reaction?
My mother was very apologetic. She was very apologetic. She asked me why I hadn't said anything. And again, my parents were very strict, very strict. So I didn't know. I was trying to do right. But now it seems like if I said anything, I would have got in trouble either way. So, and then with my father, I think he was more or less shocked because this was his family. And he's always held his family kind of unfortunately in a higher regard than his immediate family, meaning his kids. So, of course, he was apologetic, but I think it shocked him the more knowing that this was what was going on.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Dominique, very similar because you said it was your cousin. At any point, did you try and share details or tell someone? Or were you still, as you said, feeling that your cousin was going to kill you and you took him at face value?
At the time, I took him at face value. When my mom bought another house on the other side of town, that was when of course, I was removed out of the situation. And so like the last day that I went to school over there, and all of that, it was like a day of relief. And I have vowed to myself that I wasn't, going to talk about it because it's very difficult to have a conversation with somebody about somebody forcing you to perform oral sex on them to some days until I threw up, till I did it right.
Wow.
Okay. And so it's very difficult. Like you don't want to, who wants to tell somebody that? And so I didn't say anything for a few years. So the Lord is good though, because he will always make a way for you of escape. The Bible talks about that. He will always make a way of escape for us. And so my mother is a dreamer. And so he gave her a dream. And in the dream, she saw whatever she saw. And she came and picked me up and brought me home and sat me down and was like, Dominique, has anybody ever touched you? And so immediately I couldn't even hold it because it's like once somebody take the lid off of that thing, it just comes flowing out. And so I sat there and I think I cried for about 5 minutes straight, and I didn't even say anything. Like, I didn't have any words. And so once I did say something, of course, I told her what happened. I explained to her the whole situation, told her what he did, at that time, I don't think I even told her all of the things that he did. And when I wrote my book, she found out even more stuff that I didn't tell her, because my mom was she never let us go so she was the type of mom, she didn't let us go to people's house. We didn't spend the night. The only place that we were allowed to go was family's house. And it had to be all of us over there, like a lot of girls, a lot of boys, all of the cousins had to be. It couldn't just be me and somebody else. It couldn't be like that. So my mom was very hurt. And so even then I couldn't tell her all the things that had happened, because she was so devastated. She was so devastated. And so I now looking back at it, I wish I would have said something before, but I was 9, and I believe that, hey, he was a teenager. So of course he's big, tall, way taller than me. I'm 9. I'm a grown woman, and I'm still kind of short to the ground. So I only imagine, I was terrified.
Mm-hmm. You were his prey.
Literally.
Mm-hmm.
It's a terrifying thing to be in a situation where you know that you're trapped. Like Toni kind of talked about that too. Like when her abuser came out with no clothes on, mine came out the same way. He had no bottoms on. Wow. And sitting on the couch, and I'm like watching TV like a regular day, and somebody comes out with no bottoms on, and then instinctively something is wrong. You don't even know what's about to happen, but something is about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fear that you feel, it's a real thing. And even as a grown woman, 34 years old, and when I was married, I still had issues even when I was married.
Mm-hmm. And that seems to be a very common theme. I hear that with lots of people. Tanisha has talked about that when you're dealing with the after effects of abuse, especially when you're in a marital relationship, there are certain things that can trigger. And I know I've done a podcast with another young lady who talked about it. Specifically, her husband surprised her, and she immediately went back to that space where she felt like she was being abused. And her husband said, "But I'm not trying to abuse you. I'm just trying to be romantic." And she said, "But you can't do that. That's a trigger."
Yeah, not like that.
Right.
Yeah, it's certain things, when you've been in situations where you have been taken advantage of. Even when I was married to my ex-husband, there were some times where he couldn't come and hug me certain ways. You can't come and approach me certain ways, because it just takes me back to being in the basement and I'm in a corner. Like, I don't do that to me, but as time goes on, and God is able to heal, like he is able to do it. If we give it to him, he's able to, take what you give him, and he'll give you healing, he'll give you deliverance, he'll give you a new perspective. Because, going into, soon to be, hopefully one day the Lord to send my husband, I'm going to be in a different space to be able to have that relationship. Mm-hmm. But God is able to heal you,
Yes,
he is.
Yes, he is. So Toni, will you please share your story? And then I'm going to circle back around, because I still have a couple more questions.
Sure. So my story is, it's called Broken Pieces, a story of understanding and forgiveness. And I want people to know that forgiveness can happen. A level of understanding so that you can get to the forgiveness can happen. You have to be open, and you have to really do the work. I got to a point where I didn't like me. Mm-hmm. I didn't like what I seen. And I had to have a go to Jesus meeting with myself. I really did. And I stood there and I'm like, what are you going to do? I was always running back to the thing of my parents hurting me and my parents not loving me like they should. And in retrospect, let me make this very clear. My mother was the most funnest parent ever. My mother was very creative. She worked in recreation. There were things that she could just pick up and we could do and have fun, but I didn't have my mother fully. My father was the guy who went and bought 1,000,001 fireworks and entertained every kid in the neighborhood. My father was everybody's dad, but I didn't feel like he was my dad. But when I look back, I had really good parents. They just didn't know. The way that they parent me was what they knew. What they knew. So I had to get to a point of understanding, trying to learn to understand them and the way that they operated. And then I got to a point where I tried to understand how my abuser, what the deal was with my abuser and how he operated in order for me to be able to fully heal. So you'll read in the book where I pray to God all the time. I just prayed to God to, I wanted to forgive my abusers. I wanted to have the opportunity to see my abusers and forgive them. And I had that opportunity. I got that opportunity and I was able to do that. And at the time, both of us was immediately set free. My mom, and like Dominique said, my mom didn't know. I'm almost 50 years old. My family is just finding out by me writing this book. Before I had the book launch, I gave my mom the book when the book came in, and I said, "Mommy, here, read this," and because we talk all the time. I said, and I asked her about certain things that I put in the book. I got her permission to do it. She was like, "Oh, no problem. If it's gonna help somebody," and that's just how we are. And so when she read the book, my mom called and immediately she said, "Who is this Mr. Whitmore? Because this is a made-up name." That's the first thing she wants to know. Then her mind went to, I know exactly who this is. And she was so upset. And she was like, at the time, you were mature enough that I should have just told you. I should have just told you. And that's the thing I want. I want people to know. Have those conversations with your children. Have them, because you will be surprised at what your children understand. You will be surprised, shocked, and sometimes devastated at some of the things that your children have been delving in. And you not having the conversation with them, but someone else is not only having that conversation, but introducing them to all kinds of things. All kinds of things. So have that conversation. It's okay. It's just like when you want to ask your kids, hey, have you ever thought about killing yourself? Hey, has anybody ever touched you? And I mean inappropriately. And you can't lose focus once you hear about it, because at that point in time, your child needs you. You can't go off the deep end. The reason for me not telling was because I knew exactly what my uncle and my dad would have done. That would have broke my whole family structure up. I wouldn't have anybody as far as males were concerned in my life. So I didn't tell because I was too worried about what they would do. So have that conversation. Have it.
Thank you, Toni. And the Holy Spirit is all over this because you answered my next question. It was what do you say to children? But I want to go back to something that you said, and you're absolutely correct. It is important to have the conversation. You all have said it is important to label appropriately. Let's not use nicknames and cutesy names, all of that. No. Let's use the accurate name. But I also think that it's important, Toni, because you said you needed to have forgiveness for your abuser. So that you could be free, so that you could heal. And I think that is amazing that you were able to do that. I also understand, because you were 11 to 13, you said it was 2 years?
2 years.
To have to come to a decision to say, I'm not going to tell my father, my mother, or anyone in my family because I know that the men in my family will go and harm this person. And then that person, those people that do that will be taken to jail. That is an incredible and difficult decision to have to be made at that age. However, here you are sharing your story, giving hope and helping people to heal. So I applaud you for that. Michele, I want to come back to you because you talked about the young man who attacked you, and I know you said you had no business going over there, and I understand it because when we're 14, we don't make good decisions because we're not mature. We're still children. So I understand that. But was this a relative? Because I thought you said it was a friend of a friend.
Friend of a friend.
A friend. Okay, correct. So it was a friend of a friend. Did you at any point decide to tell, or were you afraid? And I know you said that you were lost because you didn't know who you were. And I also heard you say you didn't know whose you were. And that is important because you didn't understand and see God in your life at that moment. But did you tell anyone? How was that when you revealed your story to your family?
Yes, so I remember telling my mom, and I didn't give her all the information. So I think she was sitting watching Johnny Carson in the living room, and I came and slunk in because I remember around that time of night she had all the lights off, and just all you could see is like the glow from the TV, right? So I just kind of slunk in the room and just kind of hung around and kind of slid over to her. And then I said, like kind of quietly, Mom, I have something I need to tell you. And she's like, yes. And I said, I had sex. I don't really remember what she said verbatim, but I just remember how, Maya Angelou says, you may not remember what a person says, you may not remember what they did, but you always remember how they made you feel.
Absolutely.
And I just remember feeling as if I let her down and as if I had shamed the family. And I just kind of, and she only said like maybe about a couple of lines. And I don't recall her ever looking away from the TV. She wasn't watching it anymore, but I don't know if she really knew how to engage me at that point. But it was something discouraging, like, you want to ruin your life or something like that. But again, I'm trying to recall something that happened back 14. But I just remember how it made me feel. And I just remember leaving out feeling almost worse than I did when I came to her because I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't really know how. And I didn't even really know if it was rape or not, to be honest with you. I know I said no, but then I started to go back to him again and we still had more sex. And it was like, I didn't know what to really categorize it as. So I remember the first time she found out there was rape was I was invited to speak on a radio station, a very popular radio station. I'm from Illinois, so it was a very popular radio station in Chicago. And I was invited to talk because they were talking about sexual assault. And I was, I believe I was either in senior in high school or coming back from college. So I was around 18, 19 when I was invited onto the show. And that's when I told her it was rape. Well, told the whole the whole city it was rape, and she happened to hear it. And a lot of things became clear to her about my behaviors because once that happened and I lost who I was and whose I was, I lost my self-identity, my self-esteem. I started to engage in behaviors that put like this. I felt like I was a slut and I started to act like one. And the more I acted like a slut, the more I hated myself. And the more I hated myself, the more I acted like a slut. So it was like this cyclone, this vicious cyclone that I couldn't get out of. It was just a cycle just spinning, spinning, spinning. And so I'm talking about even with grown men having relationships with grown men that were almost twice my age, if not twice my age. I know at one point I was 16 and one guy was 32 and he was married. Pause on that, right?
Right.
So I started to engage in behaviors that I knew was not something that my parents would have approved of. And beyond that, I actually started to become belligerent towards my mom. And when I say belligerent, honey, I mean stuff that, what I'm saying, that pretty much would have got your teeth knocked out for.
You were using gutter words that you had no business using, that your mama did not teach you, and you were talking to her like she was somebody on the street, and your mother was like
she was just some chick off the street.
right.
And I even got combative with her.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody could understand what was going on with me.
Mm-hmm.
What was the problem? Because here's this straight A student. They always kept my grades up, but my behaviors was gutter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it was so challenging for me. And looking back on it, and obviously now therapizing myself, looking back on it, I actually was angry with her for not protecting me from something she didn't even know about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know how to verbalize that.
Mm-hmm.
And instead I just got angry. And I was angry at the world. Anybody who was close to me was getting that roar. And then the other people outside of me I was trying to looking for love in all the wrong places. I don't know if it was Toni that said that, but yeah, I was looking for love.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no love with the people who I was trying to find the love from. And that became the vicious cycle because I'm looking for love from people who did not have any love for me. I'm talking about one night stands. I'm talking about guys who were already emotionally unavailable to me, people who were legally unavailable to me because they were married. I started to become a perpetual side chick because I didn't feel as if I had enough love. I did not have, and I feel like I did not have enough love for myself to understand that I was deserving of being at the head of that table next to my king. I didn't feel like a queen. I felt like worse than a peasant. I felt like the peasant's peasant. And that's how I behaved. And it took a long, long time. And when you all get the book Hush, I have outlined in there 5 steps that I took to go from hopelessness to happiness to living this inspired life. So I implore you to get the book so that it can help you. And if you do need some assistance, I am also a life coach. And you can check out my website at www.liftlifecoachingsolutions.com. That's LIFT, which stands for Living Inspired, Free, and Transform. So liftlifecoachingsolutions.com. I want to help you. I want to connect with you.
Thank you for sharing that. So we have talked about in terms of parents and caregivers, having the conversation with your children, making sure that we label things correctly. I like what Angel said about allowing her children to slide a mommy note under the door, because sometimes, children are not always forthcoming. Sometimes they're embarrassed. And it's important that we leave those lines of communication open. So my last question to each of you is, out of all of this, what one nugget would you tell someone if they're going through this and they are feeling as if they are dirty, that they are shameful, that they are not worthy, no one will love them, and it's their fault that this happened? And I think it's important to put this in perspective because Dominique said this and Angel said it. You both talked about family and how family was always sort of the protection. Dominique said, well, I couldn't go over there unless all my cousins were over there. So there's sort of this false sense of security that we have all these people around us. Oh, no, it can't happen. And what I also found ironic is that many of you talked about having strict parents outside of Toni because of her situation. But you talked about having strict parents. And I understand what strict parents are because I had strict parents. You couldn't go anywhere. The whole thing, you couldn't go spend a night at somebody's. Who's over there? I don't know those people. You can't go over there. But you could go with your cousins because those were people that you knew. And I do believe that we have to have a conversation as immediate family, the nuclear family. So mom, dad, whoever it is, and your children, that wherever you go, whether it's family, cousins, neighbor, friend of a friend, whoever, the man on the corner who we think is nice, as Toni said, because I can imagine, you feeling abandoned and somebody's giving you attention, because I've seen it. My husband has a youth league, and we see that with certain kids, they will sort of gravitate towards us for a variety of reasons. And we see that. And the unfortunate reality Michele, as you said, doesn't matter if he was 32 and you were 16, he was a pedophile. He had no business messing around with you. And we don't want to have that conversation, you know, in America. We're sort of in this weird place where we're redefining sexual behaviors. And I understand, you know, with the LGBTQ community, and I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about pedophilia, because there now is a very concerning conversation happening where people are saying that it's behavior and it's okay, and it's not, because we hear so many stories of children being abused. And I'm going to say this, that unfortunately, each one of your stories, I have heard something similar before. And, you know, I'm sure that you all don't want to see another child hurt. But what I want you to do is speak specifically to people who have been abused. Give us a nugget of hope, because that's what we want. We want a nugget of hope, something that they can hold on to so that we can make it through to the other side. And let's start with Michele.
Absolutely. I had to think it was going to start with me. So I would say I actually had the opportunity to speak over the weekend at a mother-daughter tea party. They call it a party. I thought that was so cute. And what I said to them was, there were a couple of things, but one thing I said to them was to make sure, and you touched on this, Kimberly, to first of all, make sure that we do talk to our children, because they're going to learn through trial and error, or they're going to be educated through us without having to go through that. And when we're talking to them, to make sure that they understand that an abuser doesn't have to be some guy that jumps out of the bushes. As you heard, all of us, none of us said that it was some stranger that jumped out of the bushes. None of us. And once we begin to label and make an avatar of what an abuser is, then the war is lost. Because now our horse blinders are on and all the abuse is going on outside of there. So we have to make sure that when we're talking to our children, that we're letting them know that it could be someone very close to you. It could be a brother, a sister, cousin, uncle, auntie, grandmother, niece, nephew. It could be anyone. And you need to talk to me and tell me what's going on. And on the flip side of that, parents, we're asking for our children to do something to be very, very brave. And so we have to support them. When they do tell us what's going on with them, we have to make sure that we modify our reactions, keep the support face on, and let them know that you still love them. No matter what, I love you, and I'm here for you. And get them help, professional help for the whole family unit, because it affects the whole dynamics of the family and even the parents. Get yourself separate help, because there's going to be times when you're with your child in their therapeutic sessions that you're going to hear things that's going to cut you at the heart. And you have to be able to still be there for that child. So that would be my nugget. I just really quickly, I know we're short on time, but I just want to comment on something that Toni stated. That when her friends said, this is my uncle, and they took her over there and they all played and had a good time and ate, and they received money.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all hear that? And then the next time when they said, we're going over there again, do you think it was just by chance that nobody else showed up but her?
Exactly.
Not at all. She was set up, y'all.
Mm-hmm. She was groomed.
She was groomed and set up.
Mm-hmm.
So be careful. Human trafficking is real.
Mm-hmm.
Sexual assault is real. Sexual abuse is real.
Mm-hmm.
So please have the conversations. Let's have an open dialogue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michele D. Clark. Angel Parks, can you give us a nugget of hope for those that have gone through it and are struggling?
Absolutely. My nugget, first of all, I'm very spiritual, like we all are on this panel. My nugget for me was being able to overcome by the word of my testimony. I began to overcome because I spoke on it. When you release it, it lifts the burden off of you. And you also need to understand that it's not your fault. It is not your fault. You know, you might have went in as a victim, but you can come out as a victor. This doesn't have to necessarily define what your next steps will be. It's a cleansing and a purging when you speak on it, and God is going to be able to get the glory out of it in the end. And I just want individuals to know it's unfortunate. However, he gives those burdens to those he sees fit to carry, because we are warriors, we are strong. He has already defined us to be able to go through it and to help someone else as they go through it. So we're fighting a fixed fight, and it's not your fault, and you will be okay.
Thank you for that, Angel. I felt the spirit in that.
He all up and through here.
Amen. Amen. Dominique Johnson, or Dominique M. Johnson, excuse me. Can you give us a nugget of hope for those that are struggling?
Absolutely. Just to kind of piggyback a little bit off of Angel, what your abuser did to you is not your fault. Hurt people, abuse other people, because they don't know what to do with the feelings that they have. But what I really want you to know and to understand is that God saw you. He sees you now. He sees where you were, where you are presently, and he knows where your future is. And God never, ever leaves us. He never leaves us for no matter what we're going through. And God will never leave you without a solution to a problem. And he is the solution. All of us have had trouble, trauma, hurt, abuse, neglect, all sorts of things. But we had to know on the inside that he never will leave us. So the nugget that I give to people today is that God sees you. He knows your name. He knows where you are. He knows the situation that you're going through, and he will never leave you fatherless and without a solution, because he is the solution. Nothing that you ever can go through, nothing that you can ever, encounter. He already knew that it was going to happen. He already knew that the enemy was going to send it, but he always makes a way of escape for his children, all of us. So do the work and really, be ready to be transparent. Be ready to allow God to stand up in you, to be brave and decide and make a decision that the buck will stop with you, and that nobody else will have to endure what you endured, because God is with you. He's for you, and he's on the inside of you, and he is what makes you brave. Just like he made all of us brave, because it wasn't us that wanted to tell our story. It is God on the inside of us that stood up in us and said, it's time for you to declare what has happened so that I can get the glory. Mm-hmm. So that's my nugget.
Thank you for that, Dominique M. Johnson. And yes, you are correct. You guys are breaking generational curses, because as you said, all of you have said there were threads of abuse that had happened and occurred throughout different times in your family. So I applaud each one of you. Toni, certainly not last, give us a nugget of hope for those that are struggling.
So I speak to the person, or I speak to the little girl or the little boy inside of you that you haven't addressed yet. I need you to speak to that little boy, or I need you to speak to that little girl. I need you to speak to that young person on the inside of you, and let that young person know that, hey, we made it. We made it. We made it on broken pieces. Mm-hmm. We made it on broken promises. I want you to speak to that young person on the inside and tell that young person how brave they were, how proud you are of them. You know what I mean? And once you start to heal that person on the inside, once you start to speak to that person on the inside, you will be profoundly amazed at how you feel, how that weight will come off of your shoulder. If you look at all of us prophetically, these things did not come to us. They just didn't come out of the blue. You know what I mean? The enemy had to start somewhere. And why not start to cut you off when you were young? Why not start to plant these seeds now? Because he knew what was great in you, what great things you would do. You understand? There is healing. There is healing. There is healing and forgiveness. The forgiveness is not for the person. The forgiveness is for you, so that you can live a whole, healthy life, so that you can move on, so that you don't take this over into your relationships or even with your children, sheltering your children and not allowing them to be able to fully grow the way that you needed to grow. So I need you to address that young person on the inside of you. I need you to understand that it's okay to get help. It's okay to see somebody. Therapy is so important. I was blessed to be able to work in the mental health field where I had professional people around me who noticed things, and I was able to get the free help. It's okay. You're not crazy. Yes, Black folk, we do seek therapy. It's okay. My check engine light came on a long time ago and I didn't get it corrected. Your check engine light is on now. I'm gonna need you to go in for some service. So,
Amen.
yeah.
Amen.
Can I just say something really quick? Just really quick. Just to piggyback off of Toni, and especially in our culture, we believe that therapy is the devil. We don't go and tell our business to people on the street. I want to kill that thing.
Yes.
And forever. We need Jesus and therapy. Let me say it again. Jesus and
therapy.
And Dominique,
we need both.
And can I say this? You can never, I tell people all the time, I can never come to a person and deal with them in the supernatural before I can deal with them in the natural.
And the natural, come on.
So you have to take care of your natural man.
Yeah.
So in the natural, so in the spirit. So once you take care of the natural man, the spirit man will be able to come in and comfort and heal everything.
Yeah.
You can't pray it away.
Exactly.
Unless you deal with the natural.
And a lot of times people want to receive words of prophetic words and words of encouragement. And sometimes, and God uses all of that stuff. You know, I'm prophetic myself. And so I lay, pray, prophesy, all of that. But the thing about it is that you have to deal with the thing that broke you.
That's it.
You have to go back. You can never, I don't care how successful you are. We see it every day. It's multi-millionaires, billionaires, and they kill themselves because why? They can go back to the beginning to fix their brokenness and they still are jacked. So in order for us as people, men, women, young adults, we all need to come to the place to where you learn to deal with the thing that happened to you before so that you can really be the original intent that God wanted you to be.
Yeah.
We'll never come into the place of being the original intent if we don't go back to the beginning and deal with what broke us from the beginning.
Uproot it. You have to uproot it. I tell
Yes.
people all the time, behaviors can be changed. Cultures have to be uprooted and imploded. You understand what I mean? And so when we are sexually assaulted and molested and abused, that's a culture. That's a culture. It's not so much of it's a behavior, but it's a enrooted culture, and a culture has to be uprooted and destroyed before you can move on and see the beauty.
And I wanted to say something that my pastor, Pastor Jesse White, with Greater Olivet Missionary Baptist Church, what he says. He said he takes out a $20 bill and he asks you, how much is this worth? $20, right? And then he crinkles it up and he says, how much is this worth? And we all still say $20. He throws it on the ground and steps on it and wishes it around and picks it back up and he says, how much is this worth? And we all say it's $20. So no matter what we go through, no matter what we've been through, we're still worth it because God says we're worth it. God loves each and every one of us, no matter what we've been through. God is love. And so we have to remember that no matter what it is, no matter what traumas or tragedies that we've been through, that we are still worthy. and we're still worthwhile because we are all God's children.
Yeah.
Amen. Let the church say amen, because I'm just gonna tell you I was feeling.
Amen.
They preach it. Okay, so last thing I want to say before I let you guys go. Angel, you said something that I have been saying since the beginning of the pandemic. The pandemic came and it put up a mirror for everyone to look at whatever was going on. This was the opportunity that God placed before you to look at yourself. And so I am so proud of each one of you for sharing your story, for giving hope, for pushing healing, because this is something that happens so much more than we know. And we need to have that conversation so that it doesn't continue to happen. I love the analogy that Michelle's minister gives. It's a $20 bill. You can cut it in half and tape it back together. It's still worth $20. It doesn't matter what you do. And oftentimes, and I say this all the time because we talk about mental health on the Kim B. Davis show a lot. Therapy. Jesus created therapy. Psychology was created by God. Go to a therapist. Find somebody that you can talk to. Get the help that you need. Don't be the person, and I think it was Dominique that said it. Don't be the person that abuses someone else because you were abused. And unfortunately, that I don't know what the specific number is, but it is a statistic that if you are abused, there is a great likelihood that you in the future will abuse someone else. So for you to share your story, you are breaking the generational curse. So thank you for that. Before we go, I want each of you to tell me where we can find, because I believe all of you are authors. So I want you to tell us where we can find your books, where we can find Hush, and how we can reach you on social media. And I'll start with Toni.
How you can find Hush is you can, if you like, you can contact me. I'm at Plater, Plater, McBride, McBride, author at gmail.com. And then also Tanita has something where she you can contact her as well as so it is written .com or so it is written.net, and you can also acquire the book there.
Toni, can we find you on social media? Can we follow?
Sure can.
Okay, where can we find you?
So you can find me on IG, and on IG I'm Miss Plater, Plater, McBride. On Facebook, I am Toni, Toni, so in love with him, McBride.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much. Dominique M.Johnson, tell us where we can find you and where we can find your books as well.
So you can find me on Instagram. I have, my page is Freely Me, Freely Me 086 on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook at Dominique M. Johnson. And then I also have an author page as well that's linked to my page as well. So I have two books. So I have, my first book is called Rising Out the Pit of Rejection, that I wrote in May, released it in May, my very first book. I'm so very proud of myself. And that book can be found on lulu.com, and you can just search my name and it'll pop right up. And then you can also contact me for the Hush book as well, or you can contact me via Instagram, via Facebook, or you can go through so it is written.net as well. So thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you. Angel Parks, tell us how we can find you, how we can follow you, and where we can purchase the books.
All right. Thank you guys again for having us on here. I am on Facebook as Deandra Parks. I also have a company page. They could reach me out there as well. It's called the RFC Group, R as in ready, F as in for, C as in change group. That's on Facebook as well. LinkedIn, I'm on there as Deandra Parks. The book, we can get it as well as so it is written.net, as well as my personal email, which is parksdeandra@gmail.com. And just a little nugget to let everyone know, my book, about my life is coming out. It's already in the second revision. It's called When the Lights Came On. It's with the editor now. So be on the lookout for that. And it talks about the journey that I went through with an abusive marriage and coming out as an entrepreneur and still standing.
Amazing, amazing. Certainly, last but not least, Michele D. Clark. Tell us where we can find you on social media and how we can get access to your books.
Absolutely. On social media, Facebook and Instagram is Michele D. Clark .lift, Lift. So that's Michele with one L, D Clark .lift on both Instagram and Facebook. On Facebook, I also have my business page, which is Lift Life Coaching Solutions. And of course, that's Lift Life Coaching Solutions, where we are living inspired, free, and transformed. And that's my website as well, www.liftlifecoachingsolutions.com. That's where you can also purchase the book. As a matter of fact, as soon as you go right to the website, there's a pop-up first page where you can get your book Hush. If you would like to order multiple copies or in bulk, then you can either text me or call me at 586-298-2121. Again, that's 586-298-2121. Additionally, I'm in the process of launching a program, a 6-week program that will help women. So I work exclusively with women, y'all. Sorry, guys. But I work with women, and it's going to help you to get through whatever it is that you're going through in your life. Get through it on the other side and start living an inspired life. And it's called the Belief Restructuring System. And if you text me at 586-298-2121, and you text me Living Inspired, matter of fact, I want you to text me Kim Davis, because I want to know how you heard about me. I want to give Kim Davis some props. Let's give Kim Davis some props, y'all. If you text me Kim Davis, then we will give you all a discount on the restructuring system, the Belief Restructuring System. It's normally $349. And for you all today, when you text me at 586-298-2121, $297. That's it for a 6-week course to restructure your belief system. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Wow, this is amazing, ladies. And I'm sorry that our time ran out, but this is such an important topic. Again, you guys gave so much great information and so many things that we need to think about. Have that conversation. Make sure that you label it. No means no. It is not your fault. You are a victor. God gives you a test, but you have to have a testimony to come through, and this is your testimony. So thank you again, guys, for being on here. And Tanisha Johnson, yes, we missed you. We know that you are out of town and you left us with an amazing group of ladies to talk to. So thank you for sharing that. So I can't not announce Tanisha Johnson, who is author, coach, entrepreneur, expert, the head cheerleader, all those things, who brought this amazing group of ladies together. So again, thank you everyone for being on the Kim B. Davis Show. Everyone, you remember you can find me at kimbdavis.com and learn more about me as an author. You can see this show on youtube.com/Kimberly Batchelor Davis, and Batchelor is spelled BATCHELOR. You can hear this show on Apple, Spotify, Google, and Stitcher. You know, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, TikTok at KimberlyBatchelorDavis.com. Thank you again, guys, for being here. I hope that you guys will join us on our next episode. And as always, remember, be magnificent.